I know why I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democrat because this party gives voice to people who have no voice. And it is time for us to do that once again, without worrying about what the political consequences are. And one place that we can start is with 37 million of our own people who wake up every single day worried about feeding their children, worried about clothing their children, worried about having a decent place to live. You know, in the richest planet, richest country on the planet, this is just wrong. And all of us, collectively, we have a responsibility to do something about it. And I watched these images streaming into our living rooms out of New Orleans after the hurricane hit. Had all my friends asking me these incredible questions. I mean, really. They say, I don't understand why folks got left behind. They were told to leave. Why didn't they leave? Well, they couldn't leave. They didn't have a car, or a bank account, or a credit card. They had no way to leave town. The other thing, by the way, that the country saw is the country saw, coming out of the lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans, that although it's not entirely true, it is largely true that poverty has a face in this country, and that face is a face of color. African American families in this country have an average net worth of about $6,000. Latino families is $8,000. White families, it's $80,000. Why did the poor get hurt the worst in New Orleans? They always get hurt the worst. They live on the edge of a razor every single day. Every day. I'll never forget, I went down to, by the way, just as an aside, I took 700 college kids about 2 weeks ago, and they all gave up their spring break to go with me to New Orleans to work during their spring break. Yes. It was absolutely inspiring. You all would have been so proud of them. I mean, the kind of hard work and backbone and service, caring about others, not just caring about themselves. I went to Baton Rouge right after the hurricane hit. I was walking through an evacuee center. I came up on this one guy, sort of stocky-built, strong guy. I'll never forget this guy. And I said to him, how are you? And he said, well, I'm okay. I lived in the lower Ninth Ward of New Orleans. He said, my house is underwater. The place I worked for 23 years is underwater. And this guy's sleeping in a sleeping bag, about 10 feet from where we were standing. And he said, but you know something? When I got here, they told me if you go out front in the morning at 5 o'clock, sometimes people will come by in trucks and pick you up and put you to work. He said, I've been here 10 days. I've been out front every single day at 5 o'clock. No one's picked me up yet, but they're going to. That guy represents what our country is supposed to be about. Now, I'll tell you something else. For the last year to year and a half, I ended up with a little time on my hands. Not by choice. But I've been traveling around the country, going to community action centers. In fact, I did a meeting earlier here today in New Hampshire. Community action centers to poverty centers. This idea, the stereotype that exists in America that people who live in poverty are lazy and irresponsible, it's a lie. I can tell you it's a lie. You go to any poverty center or community action center in America, mostly what you see are women. And mostly what you see are single mothers. Not only do they work, they're working 2 or 3 jobs. They're working for minimum wage or close to minimum wage. They've got no health care benefit. Why? Why do they do it? Many of them are working 14 hours a day, literally. They do it because they want their kids to have an easier and better life than they've had. And I'll tell you something, I don't have all the answers to poverty. I'm going to mention a few things in a second. But there's one thing I am absolutely certain of. Having traveled around this country for the last 3 years now, there is a hunger in America. A hunger to be inspired again. Inspired by something good and positive that all of us can be engaged in. Americans want a sense of national community. Nobody wants to believe they're out there on an island by themselves. And if something goes wrong, you know, you're just on your own. We're better than that. And they also know something else that crowd of politicians in Washington does not know, which is when we help victims of the hurricane, when we help lift up the millions of people who live in poverty in this country, this is not something we do for them. It's something we do for us. Because it makes us bigger and better. And it also says something about the character of our country, how we treat those who live here and are struggling. You know, what I get all the time is I have people saying to me, You know, we fought a war on poverty. LBJ led a war on poverty and it didn't work. That's also a lie. Number one, that war on poverty cut the poverty rate in America almost in half. 23 to 12%. It is because of the war on poverty that today we have Head Start, we have Medicare, we have Medicaid, we have the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. These are laws that have literally benefited generations and millions of Americans. And I know the Republicans like to claim, well, you know, you've been successful in your life. You know, you did it on your own. It's your own hard work that got you there. And if you struggled and you failed, I'm sorry, but it's your own failure. That's also a lie. You know, I can testify to that from my own life experience. Now, there is a remote chance that at least one of you remember I'm the son of a millworker. I think I managed to say it every single speech I gave for 3 consecutive years. But my dad had to borrow money to get me out of the hospital when I was born. Took me home to a 2-room house in the mill village. My folks worked in the mill. Grandparents lived right up the street, helped raise me. They worked in the mill. But here's the point. I've now had everything you could ever have in this country. Everything. I didn't get here by myself. I could never have gotten here by myself. Number one, I had heroic public school teachers who helped educate me. I went to a state university for my undergraduate education, paid for by taxpayers. For my graduate education, state university, paid for by taxpayers. I borrowed money, paid for by taxpayers. America was with me every step of the way. None of us get to where we are by ourselves. And what we do together matters. It says something about the character and the conscience of our country.